One, the family you are born into is arbitrary. Being tethered to it does more harm for you as an individual, and that is why we oppose. Two pieces of extraneous rebuttal. Okay, actually first set up. Two pieces of extraneous rebuttal. Then my main argument on why staticness is bad, right? And I think that this encourages the cultural conformity, which we think is harmful. What is actually their work? Because I don't think they really do like a clear job like illustrating it to us. But I think in general, right, there's probably going to be some like grandparent, right? Like group of grandparents, like some sort of patriarch or matriarch that dictates how the family looks like, right? For instance, you probably be bonded together by being of the same surname, right? And for instance, like wives are going to be roped into the husband system. I think that this is a reasonable piece of characterization as to what the system looks like. This will be important later. Okay, two pieces of trainers rebuttal. The first thing is on the allocation of work, and I find this to be a bit weird. The first reason is that it's probably going to be symmetric, right? Insofar as you're a bigger family, you're going to have more resources, you're going to need a bigger house. I think TJ rightly points this out. This means that the extent to which like work allocation can be easier is probably a lot. Is probably very insignificant. I think to some extent it's marginal. Secondly, on stress, because the parents have to take care of both their children and their grandparents, because presumably grandparents are going to be weak and they can't really sustain themselves sometimes, right? Some more they have to work. I think that's going to be a lot worse compared to a nuclear family context where you only have your children to care about. The last thing I want to know is that even if it's, okay, the third thing I want to know is that, look, you can feel guilt for like not taking care of your parents, because the thing is that you feel a very strong sense of attachment to your parents. They've been the people who have been taking care of you for your whole life. Seeing them die and like, you know, like suffer is probably not something that you let pass. And to the extent that that is true, I think you'll be more willing to care about your grandparents, therefore, right? The last thing I want to know is that even if all of that is untrue, the thing is the state can provide for the elderly, the state can provide for children, right? They say that that's a bad thing. But I don't think there's any marginal difference, right? Presumably, on your side, on our side of the house, the state will take care of them. On your side, the family will take care of them. In fact, I think it's principally better because the state has a duty to take care of its vulnerable. You are arbitrarily born. You don't consent to being born. I don't think this principle is upholded. Therefore, I don't think this clash really makes sense. And to the extent that that is like the crux of the argument, I think for now they're out of the debate. The second thing I want to talk about is relationships. And they say that because you talk less to your grandparents, therefore you're likely to have regrets, right? The problem is that I don't think this argument actually holds that much weight. Presumably it's symmetric. Because if it's true that you have more conversations with your grandparents or your relatives, you are going to value them less. If regret is such a powerful force, that means that you're more likely to value the time you spend with your grandparents. If it's shorter, you're likely to spend more time valuing the conversations and paying more attention to them, as opposed to treating them as like, you know, another person. Think of how you value your conversations with relatives who you don't spend that much time with, as opposed to your parents. That's why we think this is like out of the debate, right? The main argument I want to present today is on parenting styles. And why parenting styles are likely to stay static. And to the extent that is true, children are tethered to these systems. They are like pressured not to speak out. And also in the future, they aren't able to define themselves beyond childhood. Okay, why do parenting styles exist? And this forms like the basis of my argumentation later, right? The premise of this is that parenting styles are a projection of what your beliefs and your values are. The narrative of parental fulfillment is that you want to raise a child in your image so that he can succeed by your standards. To the extent that that is true, you're likely to impose those same standards onto your child, right? For instance, that's why a lot of parents who are in Gen Z, right, they're likely to practice more gentle parenting towards millennials because their baby boomer parents were a lot more authoritative towards them, right? Because they have this trauma in their heads and they decide, I do not want to project that to my own child. So parental like styles, right, are a projection of what you think is valuable and what you think is good, and you're like projecting that on your child and like seeing how that works out, right? The problem is that this doesn't exist on their side of the house, because insofar as the characterization that I've shown to you is relevant, that a patriarch or matriarch is going to dominate how this parental structure works, right? We think that, for instance, these look like grandparents, right? We've taught these parents like all these sorts of things, right? For instance, let's say like outdated or archaic feminist, like anti-feminist values, that as a mother, you should be staying at home instead of working, even if you want to work, right? Or for instance, other like toxic values, right? Which we think that are going to hold more ground in their world. Why? Because the fact is that parents don't want to like anger their grandparents, right? Because like clearly your grandparents will want to like complain to you. For instance, you stay in the same house, you don't want to see their face every day, so you're likely to appease them, right? But also because like you have been brought up this way, right? And so it's like, and so it's like your fundamental like sort of like identity, right? And so this means that you really, really don't want to disappoint your grandparents, right? The thing is that on our side, this mechanization is like favorable, because the thing is that when your grandparents aren't there every day to like nag at you, right, you're more likely to, for instance, exercise some discretion in how you raise your child. You're likely to, for instance, think differently or be more open to how your child acts, right? Because there isn't that external pressure, and it's a really intense pressure, given that you've grown up with them. This is like these parents are very important to you. You don't want to disappoint them, right? And to the extent that this affects your conception of how you see the world, we think that's very, very bad, right? It means that generational trauma is a lot more pervasive because it can be carried down from generation to generation. You as a grandfather, for instance, are likely to chide on your son for raising your grandchild in like a more like open or modern way, right? Now, this doesn't exist just top bottom. This also exists bottom up, sorry, because children want validation, right? And to the extent that, for instance, you have a greater pool of family members, like elders that you have to look up to, right? We think that, and to the extent that there's more children in the family because you're competing with your siblings and your cousins, we think that it's going to be a lot more competitive, right? To seek this validation, which means that you're more likely to conform. You're less likely to speak out because the thing is that you have a lot more to lose on our side of the house when you speak out against shitty parenting, right? And this is especially harmful for instance, if you're a teenager and you want to like experience new stuff, you have like different like conceptions of what your identity is like, right? Which means that the impact of this is very, very bad because it encourages this culture of conformity from top down and bottom up, which suggests that children shouldn't speak out and that an archaic conservative status quo is the way forward. Social change is a lot less likely to occur on their side of the house, and children are going to be a lot more stressed. And when they grow into adulthood, they project these values onto like their children and like the society in general. We think that this leads to a lot more fucked up outcomes. Sorry, they take your PO. I won't. I mean, plastics already like whatever. So what are the effects of this? Firstly, there's less individuality on our side of the house. And we think that's very important. Let's say you succeed and you earn a lot of money, right? On their side of the house, you're more likely to be pressured into like paying it forward, right? Because your grandparents will say, look, we like spend so much money on like your academics, right? You have to give us some. Like for instance, how a lot of Asian parents expect their children to like take care of them when they grow old. We think that this becomes a lot more intense on their side of the house. You're unlikely to defend yourself, right? The comparative on our side of the house, right, is that you only give back to your parents when you feel that they've done a good job of raising you and you feel that they're deserving of it, right? This creates a stronger incentive on parent sides to actually give a shit about their children, to care more about them, right? The second more pernicious harm is that, like, this means that, for instance, if you are LGBT person, right, or you're like, or like something like that, right, and you want to, for instance, identify yourself, right, we think that because of the fact that like you can't easily cut off an entire like extended family as easily as you cut off like your individual parents, right? We think that this means that people are more likely to shut up. It creates a very big dissonance in your identity. And we think that to the extent that it's true, people are going to be locked into these systems more. Oh, Jesus Christ. So therefore, we oppose this motion.
Thank you for that speech. Let's now welcome Deputy Prem.
Hi, am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are both.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Second to organize my notes. Now, there's two main ideas that government brings to us today in this debate. Number one, they tell you when you have extended family living with you, you get to forge closer bonds with them.
Hi,
And number two,
Leader. Sorry,
yes?
you're kind of really, really far from the microphone of the device you're using, so
Okay,
might be better if you move closer or just exchange seats. Just to make sure that I can hear everything.
Is it better now?
It's still the same.
Maybe I put on my earbuds.
Okay.
Is this better?
Yes, way better. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hold on. Okay, so I'm audible now, right?
Yes, you are. Very clear.
Okay, good. I think that there's two main ideas that a government tries to bring up to us today, right? Number one, on the idea that you're going to be closer and you're going to forge better bonds with your nuclear family, right? And then number two, they tell us that you're going to get better care for children because you have more resources. Now I'm going to characterize a bit about how interaction with this extended family actually looks like, right? So OG tells you when you normalize this lifestyle with your extended family, you close generational gaps and conversations happen more often on their side of the house, right? And you then don't regret things that you don't do. You don't regret that you don't talk to your parents and you forge closer bonds. A few problems I have with this idea, right? Number one, the idea of generational gap is worse on their side. So realize, right, a lot of young people today, they have very, very different views from how their grandparents think, right? And how their grandparents see the world. So things like social media being prevalent now, woke culture, and very different moral standards. Realize also the political landscape and the economic landscape is very, very different. So we think like grandparents and children view the world very differently. So in the past, for example, you think like job markets are very easy to get in. So it's very easy for grandparents to tell these younger kids that, hey, if you put in enough effort, then you should be able to get a job. If not, it's because you're lazy, which is obviously not going to be the case today, right? Because job markets are very competitive. And they're also going to believe in things like very traditional gender roles, right? In the present, it's not going to influence these children's views because of the fact that they interact with their peers more. They're going to be on social media more, and they're not going to change their views based on the fact that the grandparents believe in it. And we don't think that these children are likely to speak out against their grandparents either, or anyone for that matter of fact, when you live with your extended family, because of the fact that the ratio of kids to like older people are a lot worse on their side of the house. So what that means, right, is that they're under a lot of authority that they have to conform to. So then we think that they are more likely to think that their parents, their grandparents are bad people. Their grandparents are people with terrible morals and principles of the world. And then what that means is they're going to accumulate a lot of hatred towards towards people who are older than them in their family. And it's going to become worse, right? Because there's an accumulated number of interactions you have with these people, and it wasn't their view of these people, and that has a larger impact of them because of this accumulated interactions. And we think there's going to be larger tensions between younger and older people in the family. So yeah, can I take the POI? Three.
Okay, it's quite speculative that whether your grandparents are toxic or your parents are toxic, then opening government has more increased possible, safe space for children, which is better for children's future.
No, I don't think this is going to be very safe for children, right? Because realize, number one, there's a lot of generational trauma, like my first speaker has already told you, right? That like parents, they experience like authoritative parenting styles and it translates to how they act towards their children. And when they live with like grandparents, right, it's harder for these parents to go and speak out against their grandparents. But also, we think like when you put like kids and these grandparents alone in the same room, right, parents are not going to be able to have the capacity to control what their grandparents say to their children. So then it means that like grandparents have like a larger influence towards these children, which are still going to be harmful, right? So we don't think that it's true that like children are going to have very safe spaces. But also because of the fact that their ideologies, that their views on the world is very different. So like my previous speaker has told you, people like LGBTQ plus people or people who want to pursue like dreams instead of like focusing on money, right? Children are going to be very unhappy in these families because of the fact that there's a lot of authority that they cannot speak out against because there's a larger quantity of people that is in their family and they need to conform to that community, right? But also, secondly, on the idea of like quality of conversations on that they brought out, right? My first speaker has already told you that it's going to be worse. But I'm going to extend a little bit more on the impacts of this, right? It's so far that conversations happen. The quality of conversations on government side is very bad because of the fact that your principles are different and there's a lot of tension between both of you, right? And also because of the fact that parents also face a lot of like stress and anxieties because they now have to take care of both their grandparents and their children and maybe interact with like the siblings and the aunties and the uncles, right? So realize a lot of like arguments are going to happen. And also this is like while they have to balance their 9 to 5 jobs, right? A lot of arguments happen because they're more irritable because so the added pressure now that there's going to be a place where you like dismiss like people in their family and we're gonna hate and realize that we all hate our parents to some extent, right? But when you like put everyone together, you have so much pressure together, and this creates a lot of like bad memories, and it also rises like tensions from the past, like between parents and the grandparents, and we think it like recreates bad memories for these people, and we think quality of conversations are going to be very, very terrible, and it creates a larger gaps between these two groups of people. It also affects how the younger kids view their grandparents, right? Because when you see like your parents argue with their grandparents, and because parents are your immediate providers, parents are there like for you since the day one of your life. You're likely to like believe a little bit more about how your parents speak about your grandparents. Your parents are going to say, "Oh, don't listen to your grandmother. She's like that, like that, like that." And people and parents are going to influence children's views of their grandparents also. So what this means, right? Realize that we create a very isolated world for like elderly people as a whole. Like grandparents are going to be very isolated and very lonely because people don't agree with them in their homes, right? But also it's not going to be very apparent. It's just that a lot of conversations are going to be very bad and very like a lot of disagreements, but still they hold their authority. But so moving on to my next question, like which side better helps children and maybe like parents, right? So I talked about a little bit about like the idea of conformity, right? But I'm going to talk about how like why grandparents are more likely to be toxic towards these children, right? We think like first of all, there's less social media culture in your generation, right? There's more discrimination against like for example certain races, and it's more narrow-minded in the past. We think children are likely to speak out against so many people with different views, right? So for LGBTQ plus people, it's very difficult because a lot of them parents they raise their parents from through their beliefs, so like religious beliefs. So these things are very deep rooted and it passes on to those children and they don't have a safe space to be in. And we think like maybe to some extent, sure, like grandparents will help their children maybe ask for the candy, right? But we think like a lot of like, important things like identity that's deep rooted, we think it's not going to change very much for these children, and we think it's going to be very dangerous and harmful for these children. And with that, I'm so proud to side with OO. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. Let's now welcome member of government.
Hello, can I check that I'm audible and visible?
Yes, you are both.
Okay. TJ, can I check if you're still recording? I think my hard disk ran out of space, so I don't have the recording anymore.
Yep. I can send recording to you.
Okay, I just watched the walls one. I don't know what world opening opposition is living in. They say all old people are bigoted and want to hurt their grandchildren. Let's just first reject this absurd characterization. Most old people don't even leave the house. They have no energy. As you grow older, you lose muscle, your mental faculties start to decay. More often than not, the characterization on CG would give you is that they just want to sit home all day and watch TV. Or maybe, get a pet or something or play with their grandkids. That is the grandparents in this debate. It cannot be about grandparents who are bigoted in this. Like, I don't know why you guys are trauma dumping. It's just not a reasonable characterization on OO. They say that, social media wasn't present in their time and yet the economy is different now. Yes, but the fact is, the things that grandparents teach don't always go into telling people that being gay is wrong. If that's the case, you just don't tell your grandparents or your parents they are gay lah. Right? We think more reasonable characterization on CG is that grandparents are generally just supportive believe they teach kids universal lessons, things like culture, things like dialects and languages, things like, oh, we need to be kind, we need to try hard and study hard. These are the kinds of lessons my grandparents imparted to me. I don't know who your grandparents were, but it sounds like they did a very bad job. The second thing I want to respond to on COO is they say that living with your grandparents makes you feel stressed. Two responses. The first is that you feel alleviated by with the household chores being done. One, two, your kids are also taken care of. So it's kind of a give and take. Maybe you take care of two more parents, but your kids have like less of a burden on you. But secondly, isn't it more stress when you live away from them, when your parents are sick and you have to commute 1 hour every day to go and take a look at them and make sure they take their meds? It's a lot better when they're in the same house. Elo says, oh, we'd rather these people value the time together and use regret as the metric. What the shiz? Regret is retrospective. Only when your grandparent dies or falls terminally ill are you likely to regret. Under their side, regret is way too late. I'm going to do a few things in this speech. One, I'll knock OO completely out of the debate. Number two, I'll tell you why extended family matters are better. I'll talk to you about poor people, women, and old people if I have time. Let's go. Parenting styles. And on speaking out, this absurd bollocks argument from OO says, oh, grandparents are bigoted and nobody speaks to them. No, you're numerically outnumbered. The first thing we'll say is when you live with your cousins and relatives, numerically, you'll probably be more than two grandparents or even one if one of them has passed on. So I don't understand where this narrative of this guy is a crazy boss destroying me, dictating my life comes in. It's not true, right? But secondly, always right. We do have different sources of parenting styles, but they vastly converge on the same thing. Things like being kind and doing your homework are also the same value as grandparents teach. Again, very conveniently missed out by OO. OG is also right. They say you don't deal with bigotry. The benefit of GAF is that we have two sources. Not OO fails this debate because they never prove to us why parents are better than grandparents. And I'm going to give you a multitude of reasons why the nuclear family is a horrible idea, extending from OG. But we're going to go further from that. Not only do we have two sources, we're going to talk about why the nuclear family is disastrous. Number one, 42% of marriages end in divorce, even more when you're talking about younger parents. There are high rates of teen pregnancy in America. There are high rates of single income parents. This goes to show for every grandparent you have who is bigoted and imparts bad values, there are probably way worse parents or broken families on their side of the house. They never tell us why it's better. We think it's a lot worse under their side of the house. On our side, even if your parents are bad, even if your parents divorce, the child has a support system. And that's important when you grow up, to feel supported and to feel like there's somebody you can always go to speak to. That's why grandparents are important. Very proud to stand for them on CG. But more than that, let's not even look at this statistic. Let's look at child neglect, abuse, parents with mental health problems, parents who are terminally ill, parents who have addiction to drugs, gambling, alcohol. Again, so much worse under the globe because you have broken families, you have children without parents, parents who are working all day, parents who are not even at home. They fail to tell us why that's better. We said on the extended family, you have more people. There are more people to share the burdens. You have relatives who can step in and take leave when the child is sick. Maybe if one person is ill or dies or is unemployed, there are more people to cushion the blow. So, it's completely out because while they shit on grandparents, they don't tell us why the nuclear family is better. Extension. One, why extended families are better. Note that in status quo, we'll extend from OG by saying that when parents are always at work and don't spend enough time with them, and this happens when you have a nuclear family, right? Because you either at least one of you will have to be at work. That means at best, the kid has one parent, or maybe even zero. In status quo, kids feel lonely and their parents are always at work. This leads to them feeling things like FOMO, right? They're more likely to follow their friends when like they're cool things like drugs or gambling or smoking. Kids are more likely because their parents to opt into this because they feel like parents don't care about them. Secondly, we say it's better because grandparents can also pass down traditions and cultural teachings. And this is the nuance from OG. It's not only about having two sources, it's about what if the kid hates the parent, then they will listen to the grandparent, right? We agree. In status quo, maybe some people hate their father or hate their mother, but they will listen to their grandparents because of the maturity. And that is when we break into the kid's mindset of, I just want to play football all day. I don't want to do my homework. We think we're able to get through to the kids. Number three, let's talk about the strong support system during a crisis. I flagged to you earlier cases of illness, death, and unemployment. The impact of this is that when you're a nuclear family, it's very easy to fragment this family into a single parent family unit. Again, statistically bad, quite intuitive. I don't have to prove to you why a child growing up without a dad or without a mom is bad. In situations where a parent is sick or even dies, or is left with a single parent, kids get sick and someone has to take leave. Take any POI if anyone has anything. Maybe closing?
Yeah. So it's not like the grandparents don't exist in all, like it's that maybe they stay a bit further away. So in this kind of extreme circumstances, why can't you lean on your extended family as well?
Because when you're living further away, the impetus is more likely that you're not gonna visit them. Like, a lot of people think they're good kids, but they don't visit their parents as often as they want to, right? Really quickly, let's move to extension. Number one, we think we're also better for poor people. Note that under status quo, only rich people can afford things like daycare, babysitting, tutoring, coaching, after-school activities. Poor people can't afford this, so they often go home to a family with no parents. We think it's better they go home to a family with more people, right? Lastly, why is this better for old people? As their mental faculties decay, they want a sense of familiarity. That's why they don't want to move out of the house. They want to stay with their kids and their pets. That's why pets are good for old people. Unfamiliar environments scare them. Note, in comparison to old, who gives this ridiculous characterization, grandparents don't have much to do in life. They value peace, they value family, they value their grandchildren. Taking care of grandkids hits a synapse within their brain, which makes them really happy. Living together with them and seeing them every day, which is a scale, by the way, TJ, makes them more happy as compared to seeing them once a month, etc. Everything is speculative in this debate. Whether grandparents are bad, how many people in the family, whether the house is enough space, all this we cannot say. The only thing for sure is few things. One, we're better for poor people. Two, grandparents are better and happy on the outside of the house. Three, we have two sources very proud to propose on our side. Parents suck.
Thank you for that speech. Let's now welcome member of
Yeah, let me just sort out my notes. I prefer taking PRIs in chat. Maybe around the 5-minute mark. If anyone has anything, preferably from OG. Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. The main job that I want to do here in my speech is, first of all, just differentiating from everyone and proving why CEO's extension is much more important than everyone else's talk about whether parents are better, whether grandparents are better, whether relatives are better, whether cousins are better. I'm going to prove in my extension why our extension supersedes all of that and why it is really drastically important. This is the way I'm going to do it. First of all, I'm going to differentiate from OO because I really want to, right? All they talk about is how children cannot find their own identity and how LGBTQ young people can't come out because therefore all these people aren't able to actualize their own identity. Yes, we agree to a certain extent, but let's go further and actually talk about how we help these people to become more normalized with their own identity, to be even happier on the other side of the road. Because what OO critically judge doesn't do is how they will make it easier for these people to actualize their own identity or come out of the closet, besides assuming that leaving nuclear families or even extended families is easier in certain aspects. Therefore, judge, the more important perspective that CO is uniquely going to provide to you is how children or whoever at the end of the day, are then more likely to actualize their own identity more intensely than OO, where we develop a norm of moving out. But more importantly, why this norm is so important to develop in the first place. Because my extension, first of all, is talking about how talking about why we want to develop a norm of moving out in the first place through this motion. I want to talk about how I want to talk about how it is important for individuals to gain this kind of experience, and in two main aspects. Firstly, because when you live with your own family, your parents, for example, are more likely going to be more independent from their parents because they're not living with their parents in the first place, and therefore more adventurous in some ways, right? Maybe they move out to overseas. Maybe to move to new communities and new cities. Maybe they have parents who embark on new career pathways midway through their life, or at least in some ways that they don't largely conform to the conceptions and perceptions of their conservative parents or conservative siblings or whoever there is, right? This means that you are more likely as a child, for example, to be exposed to new cultures and friends and environments, especially when your parents, let's say, move to a new city, or when you go back and forth between your house with your parents and your grandparents' house during cultural festivities like Chinese New Year and holidays, or even when you do these things yourself when you grow up. This is good for two reasons. First of all, you need to get out and live. CO believes that people inherently need to be able to develop the norm of coming out of their comfort zone and coming out of their own shell. You need to be able to overcome your fear of the unknown. What types of people you face, what types of like places going to be you're going to visit, what types of environments they're going to be placed in. Secondly, this means this is very vital to, let's say, becoming an adult or actually becoming a functioning human being that can handle independence more easily to a really large extent because you're more able to take care of yourself in the first place. But the second aspect then is, furthermore, this can also mean that people are more likely going to move out to different socio-economic classes or these environments that can improve the quality of living. Because the counterfactual under government is that, let's say, Black people all stay in impoverished areas like Harlem and not moving out because they want to stay together, being poor together, while white people concentrate in places like New York City and keep the money they have swirling these urban centers, which makes it on a whole just bad for a lot of groups of people, right? This is bad. Why? Because it reinforces things like wealth inequality. Secondly, it reduces the chances for meaningful diversity and inclusivity to happen on that scale. This is because perceptions and norms and narratives surrounding certain racial groups are the same or constant under government side of the house. They are not challenged by people because the majority of people are probably people who don't really care about these issues, who are probably really apathetic, or who don't really care to want to dive into these issues in the first place. I'll take you later. Because at least the comparative under under CO is when people are more incentivized to move out due to our norm of moving out. Parents are more likely to find new homes in better cities or better living conditions. Children are more likely to find new homes in urban areas. That way, they're able to seep into that kind of society and community gradually. At the very least, they start somewhere that can benefit the community as a whole to a certain extent in the future. Because one, not only does it benefit them in terms of having better living conditions or better pay or better opportunities, and even potentially breaking the poverty cycle, or even setting up their own families to be in a better place in an environment to break that poverty cycle. But secondly, it also challenges hardly the current norms that by walking into other people's field of visions in these urban cities, in these city hotspots. The way this is much more important, I will argue, than CG's individual utility is because you still owe, to a certain extent, to a very large extent, I will posit, to your own community to improve its perception, to be able to build a platform for other people in the future in your own community to be able to also find a better life for themselves as a whole, and to be able to start on a better foot, right? And the second thing I will talk about is how I want to dealing with OO and extending further from them, right? Because all this about disagreements with conservative grandparents and relatives from older generations. Before that, I'll take OG.
So about moving out, as I told you in the framing, if your parents are super conservative, naturally you have incentive to move out. You try to make saving. Second, in our side of the house, you have multiple options for the safe space who might financially help you to move out. Our side of the house have more capacity to move out for children.
No, but CO's unit extension then is we already start developing the norm of moving out. It means that more families are more likely to move out from their extended families, regardless of whatever they're living through, right? Because the perception is that, oh, you should move out, or at the very least, it's better that you move out because you're able to expose yourselves, not only yourselves, but also your children, for example, to new environments and new stuff like that, right? And I think that is being able to sort of be in new communities and having new exposure and bringing that exposure not only to your children, but also just in general bettering the perception of your own community is much more better and much more important than the CEO is trying to work with, right? Because secondly, dealing with OO, right? This is much more okay, or at least much better under CO, because then these people who feel like they are trapped in their own homes are more likely going to be more comfortable in moving out. They have dealt with being able to meet new people. They have dealt with being able to be part of new communities. Therefore, under CO, they're also able to self-actualize their identity a lot more because they have been exposed to, they had prior experience since they were young, and we think that's really important for them to become a functioning adult that is comfortable with their own identity. With that, never been proud to oppose.
Thank you for that, member of UP. Let's now welcome Government Whip.
Okay. Am
Government
I
Whip.
audible? Am I
You are,
audible?
but you're really weak. On my end.
Wait, can you hear me? Wait, am I audible and visible?
It's still the same.
Okay, wait, What about now? Hello, hello.
Government Whip, you're still really weak on my end.
A bit
Oh,
soft.
okay. Wait, sorry.
Can
Can you hear
someone
me?
confirm that it's not only my end, or is it only in my end? Because maybe I have to reconnect.
No. It's quite soft.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me?
It's okay. Maybe if you're in an environment that allows it, just make your voice a little bit louder.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I can try off the video also because your bandwidth quite low.
Okay. Okay. My speech will start in wait, sorry, let me start my timer. My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Chair, CEO's extension is that it's important for a child to move out, but we tell you that it is illogical because they obviously cannot. If parents are working all day for money and they leave the child alone, you move out for what? Yes, the child may be richer, the child may have more toys, but he's still lonely and lives a lonely life in the future. First we need okay. She talks about independence and living life, right? They say that they must move out of the family home, but we tell you that the problem is people cannot afford to move out. If they have to save money by staying together, what makes you think that they can move out alone and afford a child? The child is likely to live a very poor, lonely, and isolated life. This was CJ's unique extension, which still stands in today's debate, which is very valuable. Many people move out of the family home and they cannot afford life on their own because they struggle to pay bills. This means that they work longer hours and they don't care about their kids. Again, this is our extension. We need grandparents to step in to take care of the children because if they don't, the children will live their lives without much care because the parents are not there for them because they are out working and they cannot afford to only have a single person getting income for the family. Number two, they said that we help minorities to be better on upside and because they come out of the closet. First, we need to do some weighing here, right? Clearly, closing government affects more people because let's do some weighing here. How many kids go out without parents versus how many LGBTQ kids who want to come out, right? We obviously affect more people. Kids without parents are messed up, often go into drugs, gangs, violence, etc., when they are unloved and do not receive any much close to no care from their parents. LGBTQ kids, they just don't tell their parents or grandparents that they're gay. At least they can do something so people start talking about anti-gay things or things like that. Kids without parents have no choice, and that's why on our side, we not only affect more people, but we affect people who go through the most problems. Because let me preface here that children without parents are the ones who are the most detrimental in today's debate because they are the ones who grow up and they are more likely to opt into like smoking or drugs because they do not feel like they are loved because no one is there to care for them. On our side, we have the exclusive benefit that the grandparents will be there to care for him, that the uncles and aunties will be there to care for him, even when the parents are busy and cannot. We tell you that it is an exclusive benefit, and even if you say that the parents will still be there, we still win on scale because there are at least more people caring for the child in the first place. Now, I would like to move on to the clashes. Number one, which side is the best for the poor? We think CG is obvious here. They On our side, they get childcare for free. On our side, we understand that the poor usually needs both parents to work to keep food on the table. They can't afford one parent having to stay back to take care of the kids and the other parent having one single income. On up, poor people are screwed. They already have low income, yet the mother has to take care of the children at home. In poor people's world, whenever a tragedy happens, like the mother is sick or the mother just suddenly dies, then the father has to stay back or has to take care of the children and then reduce to one income or zero income at all. Because this means that the children's parents won't give enough attention to them because they have to balance whether they want to work or whether they want to take care of the child. And since they cannot have the capacity to ever take care of the child because they're poor in the first place, because they cannot put food on the table in the first place, is why precisely they will choose to get money to at least put food on the table. We tell you that this is important because a child will grow up in a world where the parents are constantly busy, where the parents are constantly not paying attention to them because they're all stressed about whether they can put food on the table or not. On our side, we are different and we are special because at least they have the grandparents there to care for them. At least they have the uncles and aunties to care for them, which is why on our side, the child grows up properly with proper people to take care of the child in the first place. On our side, more people take care of the children means less stress on the parents, more assurance in crises, which I have stated in my first speaker. Even if the parents want to help the child on your side, they cannot because they need to put food on the table. Number two, whose side is best for the kids? On our side, the kids get more people who take care of them. This is obvious. On our side, I do not need to prove why it's true. More people that they can look up to in any crisis like divorce or economic problems, they are still cared for because there's more people there. When less people care for you on your side, they are more likely to follow societal norms and do drugs or smoke or just join gangs because of the fact that they don't feel like they're being cared for. They feel like no one is there for them because their parents are out. And like I've already stated, they have to choose to get money instead of focusing on their child. When less people care for you, we tell you that this will ruin and jeopardize the child's life in general. Op tries to prove that grandparents have different ideologies and are therefore toxic towards the kids. Let me tell you, what makes this case so ridiculous is that they never make the logical link on why these parents are toxic in the first place. This is why the whole case falls. They also fail to realize that both parents and grandparents are authoritative in the first place. We tell you that the grandparents being there at all is still better, even if they're so toxic, even if they're so authoritative, which is our worst case. It's still better because at least the grandparents being there at all is the reason why these extended families are good in the first place, because at least there's someone there. Even if they're authoritative, they are the reason why the child actually gets the education from their parents, from the grandparents, because they teach them universal morals that refrain them from going and opting into these societal norms that we have stated in our case. Now, number three, which side is best for old people? This is what Ryan told you in his extension that the previous speaker didn't want to rebut. On opposition, the grandparents are put into old folks' homes. On our side, we recognize that they want a sense of familiarity. They want to raise children and spend time with their family. CO is wrong because they say we can't just live away from parents. Dude, if your parents don't even have time for you, they are going to find time to bring back to see your grandparents. This is completely illogical. Neglect is a real issue. CO cannot just ignore it. Number four, the bottom line here is nuclear families usually fracture into single parent or even no parent families due to divorce, economic uncertainty, unemployment, illness, abuse, addiction, etc., etc. Living in an extended family gives you a safety net and nullifies the blow by providing more care. For all these reasons, we tell you that we win in all sides. We tell you that in every single way, CG clearly takes this debate. This is why I'm so proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Let's now welcome Opposition Whip.
Hi, PYS in the chat. Top half gets bogged down in this clash about whether relationship with older family members will be good or bad. This doesn't matter in the debate. because all relationships, especially those with families, are going to have its ups and downs. You can have a close relationship with extended family by visiting regularly and all. You can also fight when you see them, right? The amount of time you spend with them doesn't change the quality of the relationship. Conversely, you can also have a great relationship while living together, or you can also fight every single day about menial things. It is unclear whether people are meaningfully happier in OG's or OO's world by virtue of how much time you spend with extended family. And that's why the CEO's extension transcends this clash by showing why the norm of people shifting out, moving out of these houses and starting their own families is the push that many people need to step out of their comfort zone, to overcome the inertia of getting out of the family home, and to experience the many, many different cultures and communities the world has to offer. CEO demonstrates that sometimes better friends, better economic opportunities cannot be found at home. People don't just need to move, they need to be prepared to move to start their own family and life. I want to talk specifically about why this beats opening opposition before I talk about the gut bench. The reason as to why this extension just beats OO outright is because a large part of the OO's case is circumstantial, as I flagged in my introduction. CG points out that OO has very bad characterization of extended familial relationship. And I think we largely agree. Right? I don't think that all families are that dysfunctional, and OO just doesn't give a lot of structural reasons why that's likely. So I think it is reasonable in this debate to believe that most families are not perfect, but they're going to be okay. They fight sometimes, sure. Maybe they're a little bit conservative here and there. But I think generally in most cases, the OO just kind of very uncharitable in terms of how to describe families. More importantly, the CEO's analysis on new experiences, on going to new places, opens up options and opportunities for the individual. Because it is only when people are shamed for living in their parents' house when they're 30 years old, when they feel the societal pressure to go out. Maybe then they'll apply for that job overseas. Maybe they'll go for that job in the city. These new experiences open your mind, makes you more resilient and adaptable, widens your networks, and gives you a better chance of actualizing your identity. This shows that we win on massive utility by giving people more options and opportunities to explore. And by the way, even if none of these opportunities work out for you, the fact you know they exist and the fact you know that where you are with your family is the best option for you is still a win for you because you know you're living your best possible life. The last reason why we win is because we don't just show individual utility. Our nuance is that in the first portion, this is about the norms in society. So some people will move out on both worlds, but only when moving out is normalized and encouraged will people feel excited about moving and people will be prepared to move out. And this can look like things like saving up enough money to buy a house, because grandma won't die fast enough to give you a room, right? You need to know how to live on your own. You need to be prepared to be independent. And all these things only happen when you are expected to move out, when your parents already teach you and maybe they give you a car and some bit of a helping hand to get your life up. More importantly, this leads to a greater reshuffling of social demographics, especially in cities where government ministries and big businesses operate, which creates a norm of diversity and much greater inclusiveness comparative to a world where people tend to stay in their own little clique, and Black people only stay in Black areas that tend to be poorer, white people only stay in white areas that tend to be richer, and greater inequities happen. This shows that the benefits that only happen on scale when this becomes a norm. Okay, before I show why this extension beats the gut bench, is there anything from OG?
So about your case, I think like in either side of the house, only comparatively privileged, financially capable people are only ones financially affordable. In that moment, even our side of the house, if they have strong desire to move around, they're able to create saving by themselves, which overcome the societal pressure, which is very symmetric at best.
Yeah, but less people move out in your world because less people are pressured to. Secondly, our analysis on this being a norm shows that we pressure people, which means they prepare to move out. Their parents prepare them to move out, which means more people are going to move out in our world and access all those utility. And lastly, if they're absolutely poor and cannot go anywhere, I don't think they're going to go out outside as well. They're just living shame. That's okay. CG, do you have anything better?
Yeah. Your extension is about young people moving out. Can you engage with CG on kids who feel alone because their parents are not there? Because obviously these kids can't move out.
So the short answer is that there's a lot of other safety nets that I don't think you consider meaningfully. I will respond more to that in a bit. Off the top, I just want to show why on weighing we beat the gut bench at their very best. This is for three reasons. The first is that the individual owes the greatest duty to themselves to live their best life. That's why their duty to actualize themselves outweighs the duty to their family, because you never consented to be part of that family, but you owe the greatest duty to yourself and necessarily the people who are going to become dependent on you. That's why you should go out and explore. Second, the individual is happier and better off in CO. We win on individual utility again by explaining how you get those better opportunities and experience. But lastly, we show a greater societal shift where society is more diverse in CO because people are willing to move around. People are willing to move to the cities, and that changes the demographics. It makes things more representative, especially in places of power. These things already beat us to government share. Let's deal with the houses individually. OG says two things. The first is that you get better family relationships and you get the sharing of burden of childcare and finances. On family relationships, OG and O has very similar problems in that the descriptions of families are very circumstantial, and there's no reason to believe why talking to the mother will change their mind or will make them more accepting. They say that some family dynamics can be beneficial, but it needs to be weighed against the intangible value of a better life in CO, where individuals are better off and they're not tied down to family. And additionally, as I explained, those that choose to stay are going to feel much, much happier because they're not expected to stay as they are in the Gulf world. The second claim that they make, I think it's extended in CG, is that there's better sharing of childcare burden and financial costs. And the CG extends this by talking about the extended family as a safety net, by showing that the nuclear family can sometimes be unstable. Realistically, I think what this extended family or this safety net looks like is the women in the family sharing child-rearing duties and cleaning duties, because it tends to be the traditional definition of gender roles, especially with the older generation. But even if it's gender balanced, it is unclear as to why this is such a beneficial thing. There's so many other safety nets that exist in our society, like childcare services, like after-class tuition, like neighborhood community groups that exist as well. I know some of these things you have to pay for it, but a lot of them are free. Your extended family may not have the same kind of emotional investment in the child. There are plenty of sex abuse cases that involve an older uncle, but even if your family support is absolutely needed, you can still ask your families for help on our side of the house. The comparative, if you know you're going to leave, you are much more likely to be prepared for the eventual possibility, much more likely to enter that situation and not have to worry about these things to start with. Very happy to oppose.